let's talk about how the stock market fared this week from Monday to Thursday, because as you know, there's still trading going on the floor today, Friday. So right now, transaction on the floor of the exchange as of Thursday, 16th May 2024, when it closed, it ended on a bearish sentiment after 4 days of trading, and that's on a negative note. The all-share index appreciated by 0.84%, settling at 98,156.71. Market capitalization closed at 55.525 trillion naira, and an aggregate of over 400 million units of shares was traded at over 7,296 deals, which was valued at 8 trillion naira. The market's breadth closed negatives as 13 equities gained, while 24 equities declined in share prices. The overall gain in the all-share index was as a result of 8.79% gain, and ITEL Africa, I beg your pardon, LTE Africa had a very high share price, and they made a loss from this week's trading. Well, we hope as of Friday, this can still be maintained by Airtel Africa. And apart from this Nigerian stock markets also presented, all in all, for this whole analysis, the Nigerian stock market has presented an interesting picture this week. So while individual companies are making their moves, as always, investors are always advised to conduct thorough research before making any investment decisions. Now, based on this, I'm still going to discuss the top gainers this week at the stock market and the top decliners also, and the total volume of shares that were transacted on the trading floor this week. So my guest this morning is Kehinde Adeaga. He's a veteran financial analyst and also a veteran broadcaster, and he's joining me in the studio this morning as we talk about the stock markets before we have more discussions on the Nigerian economy and inflation. So welcome to the program, Kehinde Adeaga.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I'm glad you're joining us this morning in our studios. It's good to have you again on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, so now this week I mentioned how shares trading was done this week, how shares have fared, how companies rather have fared this week. And the top gainers this week, Royal X, Airtel Africa, Prestige. So trading this week was on a rather, it closed on a negative note as of Thursday, 16th May, closed on a negative note. But perhaps just by a little flicker of hope, maybe it might close positive as of when trading ends today, Friday. But for now, our figures coming in are showing that trading closed on a negative note on Thursday. So now looking at this new statistics, do you really think this had to do with some new policies that were introduced, or it's just the usual fluctuation of the market?
Well, let me start by saying that what you say about the market closing negative, if you look at it from the the all-share index and the market cap, as at yesterday, it was on the high level, meaning that it closed positively. That's the market cap and the all-share index. But again, it's a period of results being brought into the market. In the last two months now, results have been coming into the market, and those results, some were fantastic, some, well, they are managing. And so this affected the market because the information each company brings to the market is a major reason why investors will look at it and say whether this company is doing well or not, and that will affect their share price. And that is what the brokers are using to determine prices of stock, apart from essay and essay of such company, or a changeover in the company. Then we look at the results. If their result is fantastic, of course, their prices will automatically be up.
Yes.
So those are the things.
Okay, and we had a total aggregate of over 409 million shares that were sold in 7,296 deals. I mean, that's quite an impressive figure at 8 trillion naira, which was valued at 8 trillion naira. So 13 equities gained, while 24 equities didn't fare so well. Now, also, you were going to say something?
Yes. When you look at the gainers and the losers table end, where we have a negative standing, like I said, this must have been as a result of the performance of companies and the essay by brokers. When brokers hear something about a company, automatically, because they are the traders in the market, they either drop the price or improve the price. So when you see companies' prices or companies' stock coming down, that is in terms of the figure of gainers and the losers, is as a result of what the information in the market is saying about them. And so before the close of market, you can see a company at the opening of the market maybe appreciating. And by close of market, it will depreciate. Why? Because there are information that came in or brokers get wind of. And so they quickly react to that. Policy also make broker to react almost immediately to any stock price in the market.
Yes.
That is the, what we have in our market. And that is a phenomenon in all the markets all over the world.
Okay, yes. Okay, now, most analysts like yourself have often predicted that, yes, there is going to be continued growth in the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Now, I just want to know, going further, before we still talk about figures, now, this optimism is always shared by analysts, but as you know, the people on the trading floor, these stockbrokers, they will tell you, yes, but if today something happens, like you mentioned, they determine the price figure. So can we just shed more light on the reason for this optimism? Is it to give investors hope, or?
Optimism that people share, one, can be attributable to information that they have. Okay. If you don't have information about any company operating in the market, you can't be optimistic about their performance. Two is the performance of such company that is released to the public, the way it is broken down, the way people analyze it. For instance, a company may be making huge profits, but in terms of their debt profile, it may be high. And so what is the essence of you making huge profit while your debt profile is also high? So it means that if you are not paying those debts under the accounting figure that you have in the operating year, possibilities are that you are pushing it to the next year. So what that means is, if next year the performance is high, definitely they will need to pay those debts so that it will reduce their cost, the cost on them. And so it will help such company to know whether they can give dividend bonus or whatever. And that is what the brokers take to, look into before they can price any stock. The bottom line is very critical to brokers on the trading floor to price any stock. So any investors can be optimistic, maybe as a result of some few companies that are performing creditably well, not the totality of the market. Because if you have to be optimistic about the market, like I have always said, is a capitalistic market. Two, is a long-term market. So you cannot base your optimism on the performance of a short-term end or the medium-term end. It must be holistic. It must be on the long-term end of it, so that when you look at it from the long-term end of it, you can see whether the market will thrive or not.
Okay, well said, well said. And since we're still focusing on the long-term ends of it now, long-term predictions, yes, they are not really certain. We could make some guesses based on our facts and figures. Yeah. But what are some of the challenges that could derail the projected growth at the stock market?
A whole lot can derail it. One, policy can affect it. That's government policy can affect it. Two, influx of foreign investor can affect it. Three, company policy can also affect it. And then the third thing is what people say about the company. Yeah. That is something that you cannot base your transaction on most time. Because you can hear people say, company A is the best. And in another breath, you hear some people say, company B is the best. Now, how do you kind of justify what they have said when you are not there? You are not there in the sense that you don't have the information that they have. We have what we call insiders trading. Yes. When we say insiders trading, it means somebody has an information that is not known to the general public, and on the basis of that information, the company that information is for will have an edge, because that broker will transact on that basis. But of course, the regulator, as the sub-regulator, that's the exchange itself, have a way of curtailing such information. Because the moment they see a transaction and the price does not justify the transaction, that's the volume of transaction, they quickly look at the broker that had done that transaction and call the broker for a meeting. That we saw that you are buying this stock at this price, but the performance, that the figures that they give to us does not justify you raising the price consistently. And then he can explain. By the time he explains, of course, what the exchange normally does with such things is, once they have that information, they put a peg, that is on an hold on the price, so that it will not be one person that is making the profit, because they want everybody to have information at the same time. So once that happens, you will now then see whether the price is justified or not. But because we have a situation in Nigeria whereby the government can just wake up one day as a result of maybe somebody who feels a company is not doing well, maybe he wants to take advantage or whatever, can just advise the government and say, do this. And then they make a pronouncement, a policy that will affect such thing. Not that company per se, but the sector that the company is operating from. And before you know it, a company that has been growing its profitability start depreciating because of that one policy statement. So we must be guided as an investor, number one. We must be guided as an operator, number two. We must be guided as government, because our market is not a local market any longer. It's an international market where both foreign and local investors take advantage of whatever information that is available.
Okay, and as you know, the reason I actually said that the market closed on Thursday on a rather negative note was because of the 0.84%. Yeah, the all-share index. Yes, I know it's appreciated, but we've seen higher figures in the past. So, but today is Friday. We can't predict how it will close until the final gong goes off.
Well, I think it's going to be positive.
Still positive.
Positive in the sense that because it closed from the market cap and the index yesterday, because it was up, the possibilities are there. Because if you look at it from Monday to Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's been depreciating. Thursday, it peaked. Possibilities are that Friday it will peak, because I know there are some information that some companies have sent to the exchange, which will propel or increase the figure that we'll be having at the final day of the transaction.
Okay, well said. Okay, now let's talk about things like the oil prices, which have been fluctuating all over, the global oil prices, which have been fluctuating now. I'm sure you know, do you think this would affect the Nigerian stock markets? Yes, it will, but do you think it will bring about a potential price drop in all companies' share prices?
Well, I don't think so. The reason being that, you know, when prices of oil is appreciating or depreciating, what the leverage our own oil companies that are listed on the floor have is the fact that we have more consumption here. And so they are basing their information on the volume of consumption, what they push out. If an oil company A, B, C, D are able to sell more within a week and compare it to what the global market is, it's natural for such company to be giving us figures that will be an attractive figure that will make investors to say, oh, these people are making it. Because, for instance, I know of a filling station that regularly they have 2 to 3 trucks a day. So you can imagine if that station is selling 2 to 3 trucks a day. Now look at it from the totality of that company, that's the maybe oil company A, that is similarly selling the same thing daily. It means the figure that they will be churning out will be high. because naturally what we are looking at is will have been profit before and profit after tax. But now they are making sales every day, and they are getting their supply every day. They are performing. So the information they will get to the market will be, we anticipate that we will make this within this period and this period. And that is what the market want to hear. If you can project, your projection is very important. And so when they see your projection, they can act on that projection. But of course, what the market is very critical about is for you to regularly send them information, whether positive or negative. Because when it is positive, they act on that. And when it is negative, they equally act on it. But of course, when it is negative, they are not as hard as when they don't have information at all.
Generally, inflation in Nigeria is at 33.69%. That's at April. And in March, it was 33.20%. So we can see that the figures have gone up and prices of everything has gone up. And we remember during the last month's MPC committee meeting, it was stated, oh, if we keep increasing the interest rates, definitely things will turn out better. It will help to reduce the inflation. But that really doesn't seem to be the case right now.
Well, as much as I agree with what you have just said, I still think that we probably now not putting all the factors that is contributing to this inflation together. If you look at it, inflation can only be in double digits when some things are not put in proper perspective. First and foremost, what is the cost of borrowing? If you have to borrow, what is the cost of borrowing funds? You are borrowing at, say, between 20 to 30%. What kind of business do you want to do that will make you to make your profit and still be able to pay back in terms of the interest that is granted on such thing? So I think the government needs, let me say the Central Bank of Nigeria, under the leadership of Dr. Olayemi Cardoso, need to look into that holistically. And the only way they can do that is get all the operators in the sector together, the financial financial sector of the economy together, and say, come, how do we help manufacturers, producers, to be able to produce, to be able to manufacture in a manner that the cost on that production will not be hitting the roof. Now, if they are able to settle that, definitely the inflation that we are talking about from every sector of the economy will come down. The second thing is this: we also as Nigerians need to face the fact now. And the fact is that we must be more of local consumption. We must be consuming more of what we produce here than what we import. Yes, we may say the quality of what we produce cannot be compared to what is imported. It can be improved upon. And that will mean that every Nigerian must be ready to do his or her own part. And then government now, because that is the bigger father or whatever you want to call it, can now say, okay, in as much as people are ready, let us also make policy that will make them to be comfortable with whatever thing they are going through. I've once said that somebody once said to the government at a time that from the president, start patronizing Nigerian-made goods. Make sure all the ministries, parastatals, and what have you also patronize Nigerian-made goods. Then the other aspect of it, leave it, because once that happens, it will trickle down to others who are not in that environment. That is, who are not working for government. Today, you see somebody wanting to put on something that is something that he or she cannot afford in a year. Why? Because he or she wants to show up that I can do this. But forgetting the fact that the income that he or she earns is to be spread across every of his or her needs. But that one particular thing is taking a large chunk of it, which is maybe about 70%. So how then do you cope with the remaining 30% that you have? So it's a spread. Government now should support the manufacturing company, the local producers, and then provide the enabling environment, which is number one thing, the security. We talk about our farmers not going to the farm because of insecurity. So if you are not going to the farm, you cannot produce. So what happens? If you are not producing, you now rely on foreign import. And for you to rely on foreign import, you must be able to provide the necessary fund to back it up. What is the necessary fund? It's dollarized. It's even disturbing that here in Nigeria, we have so much talk about the dollar, even against our local currency. Everywhere you go, everybody talks about the dollar as if that is the currency we spend here. Nobody talks about the naira anymore. And it's a disturbing story, because even the policymaker who are supposed to be talking about naira are looking at the dollar, and they are talking about the dollar freely. So where do we go from there? We need to re-educate ourselves on how we can improve our economy. Now, we are looking at it from a perspective that inflation is high. It's high because the necessary thing, the tools that will make it come down are not there. Let's face the facts. The infrastructure that we have presently cannot sustain our economy. Majorly, we are road users. Majority of the things that we transport, both human and natural resources, are done via, that is about 70% are done via road transportation. And because they are done through road transportation, and we have been talking about insecurity, bad roads, how then do we expect that the inflation will come down? It can't come down. It will continue to increase or improve. I mean, hit the roof. Because I cannot be in business and lose. The money I use in doing that business is not primarily mine. It's funds that I borrowed at an high rate, and I needed to pay that money back to make whatever margin I needed to make. So all these areas must be blocked. All those loopholes, as far as I'm concerned, must be blocked. Otherwise, we'll just keep talking about it. Yes, there's no big deal or no problem about talking about it regularly, but it's disturbing when we talk about it and no action is taken. Until an action is taken, and the action can only come from the government. Yes, when we look at the road network or the road network of between Lagos to Calabar, some people have said, it's a long-term thing, we shouldn't embark on it now. We may not have been thinking we should embark on it now, but since we know it's a long-term thing, project, what will come out of it will be so big, you get it, that even we that are complaining now would say, had we known, we would have said this thing should have been done long before now. Because we are looking at Lagos to Calabar, and there are some states or local governments that are involved in those places. So if in developed country you see people traveling by rail from one point to a very far point, and they are still doing their businesses in the train. If we have it here, it will better our lot. You can see the trains, the train that was put in place by Buhari's administration. People can come from Ibadan. They can be living in Ibadan and be working in Lagos, because there is a train services that can take them there that is effective and is cost effective also.
Okay. Well, we did digress a bit with the Lagos to Calabar route, but I understand your point, yes. And you were very well outspoken on the fact that we need to patronize made in Nigeria product, which is very, very key for us to do. And we also need to, as you rightfully mentioned, re-educating ourselves to improving our local production here in Nigeria. But as you say, our fiscal policy right now is not really encouraging us. As you know, power in Nigeria is quite expensive for those who are on band A. We know with the different band levels they created. And it's not going to be possible for us to just, because of this issue of power, to just start improving our production, because like you said, it requires a whole lot of the government's intervention to help this country to make the right kind of decisions, to make things better for us. So what ways would you suggest Nigerians can cope with this rising increase in the cost of living and the high cost of prices?
First, we must cut our clothes according to the yards of clothes that we have. Gone are those days when they will say, according to your clothes, cut your coat according to your coat. No. Today, it must be according to the yard. Now, I need 6 yards. Can I afford those 6 yards? If I cannot afford it, if it is 3 yards that I can afford, let it be 3. There's no crime. But when I say, because I needed 6 yards and I cannot afford it, it means I have to get it either by crook or means. So that will affect. And if I have to go that org to say, okay, something is 20,000 and I know what I have is 10,000, I needed to get that 10,000 from somewhere. How I'm getting it does not concern anybody. But it must be legal thing. So to avoid me going to an illegality, I should just be able to say, okay, 20,000, I don't want that of 20,000. I want 10,000, which I can afford, and I get it. Having said that, we need, as a country right now, to know what our urgent needs are. In most houses today, you see people buying things they don't immediately need because of fear of inflation. Well, you don't need to fear that there will be inflation. Let me give you an instance. Before the fuel increase, everybody was saying, no, it can't happen. We won't buy it. We cannot do it. Today, you see people queuing up in filling station to buy fuel at above 800 naira per liter. And you'll be wondering, how are they getting it? Where did they get this from? One day, I give my instance of myself. I was going to buy fuel, and I got to the station, and I saw, before buying, I didn't see the price. I said, how much is your liter? And the guy said, it's there. I said, I can't see it. He said, it's 850. I said, 850 naira? He said, yes. I drove out of that place. And I went to another station, and I saw another one. That one was 750. I drove away. Then I looked at the fuel in my tank. I said, this can take me to a filling station, which is NNPC. Sorry to mention that name, because their price is 568. So if it takes me there, if I get fuel there, fine. If I don't get, it means something has to happen for me. So I didn't take that risk because I'm not too sure I could get there. I just went, parked the car, took my jerry can, and went there. You know, if I had bought at 850, the money I used in going to buy into my jerry can to put in my car, I will have overspent. So I have reduced that cost because it took me through and fro 1,000 to go and buy at 568 as against buying at 850. So we need to be practical about things we do in Nigeria these days. Not a case of say, oh, that's the way it is. I'll follow that. If you cannot afford it, don't follow the bad wagon. That is what we are saying. People will tell you, they will argue that even the government is not helping matter, government is flamboyant, government is that. If government is flamboyant and you cannot sustain what you have, must you copy? Don't copy. Live by your means so that will help you in the nearest future. But all of us complain too much about the government. Yes, there's no problem complaining about the government, but while complaining about the government, have we also considered some other countries that they are worse case than ours? But because they have the amenities like the power that we talk about, power generation, the road network, and it didn't happen in one day. It's a long-term thing. This thing we are talking about has befallen us for a very long time. And then we want to repair it in just 1 month, 1 year. It's not visible. So we need to do something that will make us to know that it takes time. It will cost us pain. Are we ready to endure that pain? If we are not ready to endure that pain, let us not complain.
Well, I know some people that would disagree with you and say that we in this country, we've been enduring so much for a long time, keep enduring and enduring, but we still see some people living the lavish lifestyle, and then we often wonder, I mean, how are they doing it? Yes, we are told, like you said, cut your coat according to your size, don't live above your means so that you could still live a very healthy life. But as you know, this is quite unfortunate that Nigerians are being told, especially the common man on the street, oh, reduce your cost of living, you know, just to accommodate the current inflation at the moment. But things will get better.
Yeah, let me tell you something. The government that we are talking about, they are people like us. They came out from within us.
Yes.
Now, he or she gets in there, and he looked at the whole scenario, and he or she is thinking, I have to satisfy this, I have to satisfy this. And before you know it, he will do what he or she didn't plan to do. One of the senators one time said that Nigerians make them to be corrupt because the money they steal, they are not spending it alone. They are spending it on some Nigerians.
Well, let's not get political right now.
The one that spend it alone, they go through the hog all alone when they are caught. So we need to we also need to caution ourselves. That's the bottom line. We need to caution ourselves.
Okay, now you mentioned improving our infrastructure in Nigeria. As you know, the government needs money to do that, building more roads, improving the standards of houses also. Now, there's been this idea of using our pension funds to actually achieve this policy of improved infrastructure in Nigeria. So, but people are a bit skeptical about the government's reasons for tapping into the pension fund. Now, do you really think this how do I put this now? This observation is unwarranted, or is just Nigerians worried over the usual government spending issues?
Most times I want to look at it from comparing Nigeria with other developing countries like ours. Tax is something that had helped some other countries to have all the infrastructures that they need. In Nigeria, let's look at how many people are in the tax nets. For me and you, we may not be paying tax. And we want the best of everything. Those who are paying the tax, whether they get the best of everything or not, they are still comfortable. So, they don't depend on what the tax funds or tax money is used for. You only see them shout when it affects their company. Now, the pension fund we are talking about is in trillions of naira. Yes, the skepticism about people thinking, it's going to go down without something good, it will affect pensioners and what have you. Fine. Where else do we want them to get the money to provide all these things for?
The capital market?
Even the capital market. Government cannot go into capital market to just raise funds like that. Even if they have to come, their GDP, their internally generated fund is something that must be considered by the market so that they will know whether they will be able to pay back the money they are loaning from. It's a loan, mind you, the money they are loaning from the market, because that money is depositors and shareholders' funds. So if government must collect it to provide roads, it's a long-term thing. You can imagine the Lagos Calabar that we are talking about is not going to be a project of 1 year or 2 years. It can only be if the funds are readily available. But because the funds are not readily available, it will take a longer time. Now, you cannot use a short-term fund to service a long-term fund. You are going nowhere. So you have to apply a long-term fund to a long-term project. That is the reason why the pension fund is a long-term project. Because this is it. The pension fund is a contributory fund, and it's a fund that you don't expect that anybody, maybe let's say 20 people are in the pension fund, and those 20 people will die 1 year. It's not possible. It will take some time. There are gaps. So you take, it's like, let me not use that word. I wanted to say robbing Peter to pay Paul. Let me not use that word. Because if the 20 people had contributed and the government is providing road with the fund of those 20 people, the likelihood of those 20 people outliving the period of the road they are constructing is there. So what that means is that their money is still intact because it's a fund that will be paid back. And that can only be paid back when that fund is applied to generate additional money. When people talk of toll gates, people say, toll gates, you are not supposed to give us toll gates. You are not supposed to be. If they don't put toll gates in roads or on roads that are very smooth and okay, and you go anyhow, how do we expect the government to get something to pay back? That is the reason why people are skeptical about the pension fund. Yes, I admit, I accept their skepticism, but then let us also be mindful of the fact that money has to come from somewhere. And pension fund is a long-term fund, not a short-term fund. So that aspect of being skeptical should be reduced to some extent.
Okay. Now, before we round up the program, I still wanted us to talk about an issue in our foreign exchange. But before we discuss that, now, if you were a part of this current government, serving this current government, now, what ways would you say we address this high cost of inflation? That it's like every month there are new figures, it keeps increasing every month. So what ways would you suggest that we address it?
First, what I will do is to say, I will advise the government, call all the stakeholders together. They are the ones that will suggest. They are the ones that are feeling the pain. After their suggestion, present your own case. That is, government present their case to say, yes, you have suggested this, but this is the way we look at it. These are the things that are happening within this environment. What is the way forward? You have put them in a tight corner. Because whatever thing they say, and you implement that thing, they are the ones that will say, oh, our advice was taken and it was implemented. It means we were wrong. That is if it goes bad. But if it goes well, you now say, thank God it was okay. So it is a kind of a link between the led and the leading. That's government and the people. So that we won't have that mistake. Yes, we've been looking at it from, in fact, for me, if the infrastructure are provided today, our economy will be far better than some other developed countries. But security is very important. Because look at when the train was provided, the train line was provided, we had issues with the train being attacked. Because there was no security. If there was security, you can travel from here to Abuja by train. You can travel from here to Sokoto by train. I remember in those days, the train were functional and there were minimal number of attacks, so to say. Throughout my period I was in school, I never heard that a train was stopped on the road and then they were attacked. No. Why? Because it's convening thousands of people. So even when you had gone, you don't know who also may be in that train that may have gone. So you also must be very careful about it. So we need to do all these things together, not leaving it to government alone. It must be all of us hands on deck. I admit that government is not doing as much as we expect, but because the resources they have to deploy to it are not readily available. You see, when World Bank gives you money, they partner with you. How? They ensure that they monitor that project with you so that you are not frivolous about it. You don't spend it carelessly. When they say somebody is giving out a loan and then the person who is collecting the loan is not deploying that money to what he or she has applied it for, naturally from day one, that loan had gone bad. Because if you cannot pay back, what is the essence of collecting a loan? We have small scale businesses that are supposed to be supported. Some of them have equally failed those who are giving them that loan, because along the line, because they don't have a vision for that thing, they just do it haphazardly and then it crash. Because if you are setting up a business, you must also be considering policy that will affect that business you are doing. You are not the government. So government can come up with any policy that can affect it. So you must have make provision to safeguard it. Otherwise, you just go into a business in 1 year and the following year you are out of that business. Why? Because you have not done your projection well, you have not done your feasibility study well, and you have not considered the environment you are operating from well. So
Okay, and I like that very much, calling all the key stakeholders together to address this issue. Thank you very much, Kehinde Adeaga, for sharing your expertise on this. It was a pleasure having you on the program. Now, let's look at our money market figures this morning for yesterday, Thursday, and also for today, Friday. Now, we're focusing on the dollar rate. So we're looking at the official Central Bank of Nigeria rate and also the parallel market rate. So on Thursday, the dollar at the CBN rate was selling for 1,313 naira, and at the parallel markets was selling for 1,550 naira. And today, Friday, the dollar at the CBN rate, the dollar is still selling for 1,313 naira, and at the parallel market is selling for 1,530 naira. So those are our money market figures this morning, with focus particularly on the dollar rate. Those are our figures this morning on the dollar rate. So thank you so much for watching Market Insight this morning. And I also want to say thank you to my guest, Kehinde Adeaga, for joining us this morning as we talked about inflation in Nigeria, the current inflation figures, which is at 33.69%. And a very key point my guest noted was that to solve this, we need to actually have a very key discussion with the government and stakeholders in our country, particularly those who are affected by this high inflation prices. And it will help, the solutions provided will definitely help to curb this high cost of living, which all Nigerians are experiencing, and is making things very difficult for us in this country. Thank you so much for watching Market Insight this morning, and we look forward to our next episode on Monday as we talk about more issues affecting our economy. I am your host, Lavina Emma.